important, and thank God it's finally arrived, where people are willing to choose anything that isn't the cardboard cutout prostitute, Democrat, Republican, whatever. Thank God we finally reached that point where so many of us are realizing anything but that will take it. And I have to say, I would never vote because it's beyond ridiculous, but if I was forced to vote in an American election, I would have to pick Trump, I have to say. He's a wild card, you know. You never know. Maybe, you know, some of the shit's going to be disastrous, but some of it would be. Whereas Hillary Clinton, you just know for sure. I mean, she is the right man for the fucking job, I tell you.
What about Sanders?
With who?
What about Sanders?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's like, you know, a weak, watered down version of Obama, hoping, you know, all that bullshit. I don't see that at all. And you know, and I'm not supposed to say it, but, you know, he is Jewish, and, you know, he got a pass at AIPAC where all the presidential candidates, it's a fucking ritual, man. You go, and you bend over, and you kiss their fucking ass, and you really, hey, you want the job, you gotta go kiss AIPAC's ass. And he was given a pass, which would make sense if he's part of the tribe, and, you know, the Jewish people have done themselves no favors by infiltrating so many elements of society so that they appear to be friends on the surface. The Palestinian Solidarity Movement is a perfect example of this. I mean, if you're involved in that movement at all and you haven't seen this, man, you're blind. I'm telling you. It's to such a degree, I'll give it a personal example of how ridiculous it is. A few years back, there was some people in London squatted a particular building in central London, quite a desirable location. They squatted it and they called it Palestine House, and they hung a Palestinian flag. Long story short, some of my friends said, hey, we're going there, there's some speaking going on, and blah, 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 invited me to come. Okay, fine, I'll come. And so I went, and Gilad Asman, you know Gilad Asman? Gilad Asman was brought up, and they were just rubbishing him, and I said to him, you know, as somebody who knows him personally, as a dear friend, like, this is what you're saying is ridiculous, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, when I left, and we had a little bit of an exchange, you know, perfectly respectful, and anyway, I left, and they invited me again to come back next week. There was a speaker regarding Syria, and I came back, and they were at the door, and they saw me, and they said, oh, sorry, you're not going to be allowed in. I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, you know, when you were here last week, you really made some people uncomfortable. God forbid, we get uncomfortable, that's the last thing we want. You know, we all want to be comfortable, don't we? You know, don't make me uncomfortable. I said, well, what the fuck does that mean, you know, uncomfortable? What? By disagreeing that Gilad Asman is a fucking, you know, self-hating Jew, you know, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, it really didn't matter. It was all just rubbish. But the point that I'm making with this is that here I am. I've lived in Gaza. I've been to Palestine several times. I've risked my life many times. I've been presented citizenship by the democratically elected government. I've even got the key to the city of Gaza. But I'm not welcome in fucking Palestine House in London because the Palestinian Solidarity Movement thinks I'm making people uncomfortable. I mean, what the fuck is that? And it's not something that I'm, you know, taking personally. I'm just making a point here. And the reason why I'm not welcome in truth is because the Palestinian Solidarity Movement is more about not offending Jews than it is about real, meaningful action on behalf of the Palestinian people. And if you read Gilad Asman, how many of you have read Gilad's book, The Wandering Booth? Really insightful book. I mean, Gilad is Israeli born, you know, he served in the IDF. You know, his family very right-wing, you know, he understands Israel from an inner way, you know, he is a product of Israel. And his writing in his book, The Wandering Booth, is incredible. And of course he was attacked quite viciously, but it's done to him what it's done to me. It hasn't harmed me at all. He's actually stronger for it, I'm stronger for it. At the end of the day, the opposition, all they really have is a bunch of mudslinging and bullshit. Last night when I walked in to this event, you know, these bully boys came up to me as if, you know, whatever, they're going to intimidate me or some shit, and they just come up and they just have this, and they reek of supremacist, hate-filled diatribe. And yet they say, the JDL themselves say that they're fighting against hatred and racism. They're so filled with hate, it's not even funny. And they're fighting against hate. It's these people, I feel genuine pity for them. I really, really do. Because the diet of supremacism and paranoia that they've been fed is so intense. And this is literally what defines the mentality of so many Jews. And it's not healthy. And I genuinely feel empathy for them. And I can imagine how I would have turned out if I was raised on this diet. But they literally are raised with the idea of chosenness. Not everyone, of course. I hate the fact that I even have to say it. I don't mean every Jew. For fuck's sake. Would you be able to say that about any group of people? Every American feels that way. Or every Jewish person feels. It's ridiculous. So obviously there are plenty of Jewish people who do not feel this way. And God love them. Especially the ones that have the courage and strength to speak out and literally basically take away a shitload of perks and benefits by speaking out, because the consequences of Jews who speak out in a real way are pretty severe, I have to say. But we should make a distinction between those that are really genuine and really speaking out, Gilad Atzmon is an example, and those controlled opposition who have migrated into positions within the Palestinian solidarity movement to control it. And it's all very devious and very sideways and dishonest, and it's not helping the Jews who are good people who genuinely want to help the Palestinian cause and consider themselves genuine humanitarians. But it's the portion of the Jewish population that's bred on a diet of supremacism, i.e. chosenness. We were chosen by God. What does that mean? The logical extension of chosenness means that, those of you who are not chosen, well, why are you not chosen? Because you're not as fucking good as we are. God chose us. It's inherently supremacist. I mean, if you believe God chose you and not anybody else, then you believe you're better. It's just a natural extension. They're not the only people guilty of that. Americans are deeply guilty of this. In fact, I see the Jewish people and the American people as almost the same thing. We have, as Americans, been bred on a diet of supremacism. We think we're fucking better than everybody else. And this is how we can excuse ourselves when we go around bombing the shit out of places, killing people in mass. I mean, look at Vietnam as an example. We dropped 20 million bombs, more than all of World War II combined. Never mind millions of gallons of Agent Orange, which is still affecting people in Vietnam to this day. We never even apologized for that. We killed about 2 to 4 million people. How can we get away with that? Well, we were fighting communism, and it's just supremacism. You must believe that you're better in order to be able to justify that kind of shit. And this supremacist ideology is not unique to the American people and the Jewish people, but the reason why I speak about these forms of supremacism more than other forms of supremacism is because when supremacism is combined with that kind of power, it becomes extremely problematic. Not just for the immediate enemies or opponents, but for all of us. It's a threat to all of us. So if Muslims were the ones who were 2% of the population and in all of the halls of power and violating those positions in the same way that we find with the Jewish population, I would be speaking out against that. Wouldn't we have an obligation to speak out against that kind of thing if it were occurring? But we can't, because it's all summed up also very well. I think I've probably said this at every event that I've spoken at, and it's paraphrasing a quote from Voltaire. You want to find out who's in power? Find out who you can't criticize. I mean, who can't we criticize? I mean, we can, but at some extent. There's reasons why we must look at these things, because that kind of supremacist ideology with the kind of power that America has and the Jewish state has is a danger to all of us. And we do ourselves no favors at all being politically correct and not dealing with these issues. In fact, our very fate depends on whether or not we're going to face issues like these squarely and do what we need to do. We will not be able to sustain this level of insanity in a nuclear world. It is inevitable that at some point we are going to fulfill this seemingly self-destructive, suicidal path, and we will wipe each other out. Unless some savior some otherworldly being or whatever says, okay, pause, boom, okay, you fuckers, you had an opportunity, you fucked it up, okay, we're not gonna let you fulfill your suicidal fucking fantasy here and destroy the entire planet with nuclear weapons. You know, barring something like that, we will fulfill that destiny if we continue like this. You know, we've got 9 nuclear powers in this world now. 9. You know, this is dangerous as fuck. You know, Pakistan and India, shit, that could flare up. Anything could happen. One big false flag could set that off. Just one could set that right off. You know, we've got America. You know, America's official policy with regard to nuclear weapons. It reserves the right to use first strike capacity against non-nuclear states. So what does that mean? We'll fucking nuke you if we don't like you. We don't care if you pose any real threat to us or not. That's the official policy. Holy fucking shit. You know, this is nuts. We've come this close to exterminating ourselves on many different occasions. We must do something. I believe that, you know, if nothing else over the last 20 years really, I have been a very astute observer of human consciousness because for me, I'm trying to assess, you know, what are the chances that we will be able to change this disastrous course and understanding that the key of awareness, I mean, without awareness, you know, it's all useless. I mean, you have to be aware. If you're not aware, then you can't deal with the issue that you're faced with. You have to be aware. So I have been watching very closely the awareness, the consciousness of humanity. And I'm telling you, well, if you haven't noticed it yourself, I'm telling you, the growth rate of human consciousness and awareness is unparalleled. I know there are plenty of people out there that are completely asleep, and it's very frustrating for many of you that these people are not waking up. But truth be told, more people are waking up in this period in history than any other period of history that we're aware of. Make no mistake. The powers that be, they know this. They know it very, very well. And it's very concerning. In fact, they're shitting themselves. And it's really quite ironic. I get a good chuckle out of the fact that people don't realize a very, very interesting fact. These son of bitches who are running this world, they actually have no power other than that which we have given to them. They have nothing other than that which we have given to them. We've done it through our treasonous governments oftentimes, but at the end of the day, we gave it to them. We can take it back. We don't need to do this shit. This is stupid. Why the fuck would we enslave ourselves? I use an example to illustrate the point. You know, this is like literally, all of us got together and we said, okay, let's get some materials here, and we got all the building materials, and let's build ourselves a big prison. And we started constructing all the walls, and we got this big prison built up, and we put on a nice strong fucking door with a strong lock, and we said, okay, let's all get into the prison now. We all walked into the prison, and then we decided, well, let's go ahead and lock the door in here. Here, hey, you out there. Here's the key. All right, thank you. And we gave the key to a bunch of fucking psychopaths. And then we realized, oh, this prison isn't very nice. Can you please get us out of the prison? You know, please get us out of the prison. You know, this is silly. We built the fucking prison. We can tear it down. We can tear it down in a heartbeat. The prison for us is the financial system. You know, back in the day, they didn't need any pretenses or anything. You know, the king had the money, had all the army, had the weapons, and so on and so forth. And, you know, if you didn't like what the king had to say, well, fucking off with his head. You know, it was nice, simple, clean, no problems at all. But we've reached a point now where they have to con us into enslaving ourselves. And they've been doing that with their prostitute media over and over, selling us on one war after another. The absurdity of it all. I mean, nobody who's... Am I like the smartest guy in the fucking room that I know that Al-Qaeda was always a creation of the CIA? I mean, it's just it's not seriously debatable. Anybody can see that shit, and yet none of these mouthpiece prostitutes will say it. And people say, what are you saying? Everybody's... No, they just understand if you want to get on the mainstream, if you want to be one of these experts they use, you're going to tout the party line. If you want to speak the truth, you ain't going to get a fucking invitation. That's the way it works. So they don't need to be in on it. These people are just willfully ignorant. I mean, do these people seriously believe the bullshit that they're speaking? I mean, some of them probably do, but you know, none of these people who have half a brain actually believe the shit they're saying. But they keep saying it. Al-Qaeda was us, always was us. And they basically rebranded Al-Qaeda and ISIS, you know, fucking corporate exercise, really quite good. But what we see, going back to human consciousness, is that when you looked at Al-Qaeda, I mean, it was always a known fact that we supported, we funded, we trained, we protected Al-Qaeda. Never mind the fact that we goaded the Soviets into coming into Afghanistan. We were using all sorts of methods to goad them in. But that was always obvious. And that myth was maintained for at least 20, more than 20 years, really, 30 years plus. And then they created ISIS. And most people, it seems, bought into, oh my God, well, that really, we must fight that. I mean, of course we have to fight that. But ISIS really, its shelf life is about, it's crumbling, it's starting to fall apart. And it's only like, what, 3 years old, 2.5 years old, really. That says a lot. Seriously, they could create these types of fucking Frankensteins in the past, and we bought that shit, go blind and sinker. And people now are figuring this out. The amount of independent writers that I've seen write the truth about ISIS and how we're financing that is pretty stunning, actually. Pretty stunning. So what it reveals is that people are becoming more and more aware, very, very fast. And this is extremely problematic. So the powers that be are doing what they need to do. And they're basically instigating a third world war. They're trying to, on many different levels. If you look at the policies, you'll see this. I know I discussed this last night, so I won't go into it too much tonight, but the bottom line is, you look at the policies, how can you conclude anything other than we are trying to instigate a third world war? I mean, you either believe that the politicians are as stupid gets, or you believe that they're effectively carrying out orders to instigate a third world war, to the point that we're picking a fight with Russia as well. Which, again, this is a very dangerous game. Very, very dangerous. We have to stop this madness. We really do. If we carry on like this, we may very well hand over nothing to our children other than a burnt, fucking blackened planet. And that is a definite possibility. All of us will need to find the strength, if we care that much about our children, to do what we must do. So, I'm going to go ahead, I had a schedule, I don't know how much time I've got, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about...
20 minutes.
Yeah, okay, so a little extra time anyway. I talked about it last night, maybe I'll get into it a little bit deeper tonight, but for me, one of the things that I notice when I go to conferences and whatnot is that there's a lot of people with an extreme amount of knowledge on problems. They know a lot about the problems and can give tremendous details about the problems. And it is all very fascinating, I have to say. I find it just as intriguing as anybody else. But I'm far more interested in the solutions at this point. I don't know, this isn't like a social thing for me. I'm actually trying to figure out how we can affect something better, because I don't feel good about this world and that the children, my children, and the rest of our children, handing this over. This is disgraceful. I mean, come on, let's be honest here. This is really horrible that we would bring children in this world and then hand it over to them like this. It's getting worse. To the point now where we even have like mandatory vaccines and shit. They're fucking ordering people to inject poison into your babies. Holy shit, man. Yeah. I actually am happy about that, by the way, because that just forces more people to engage. I mean, that's definitely a red line for some people. Those who have a fucking brain are not going to be forced into injecting poison into their kids. So this is good, but what it does is reflect just how horrendous we're getting here. I mean, you've seen the movie The Matrix. I mean, is that an exaggeration? I mean, look at what they were using humans for in that Hollywood movie. We seem to be nothing more than some sort of product to be used and enslaved, and this is what we're handing to our children. So what the hell are we going to do about it? I thought about this a lot, and I had an idea, a plan many years ago, a world citizen, basically. And I guess I must have known, like, watching and observing human consciousness, I felt not time, but December of last year, I really thought, okay. And I mean, I'm looking at all these different things that are happening around the world. There's so many different things, I can hardly remember all of the different things that are indicators that, okay, we've reached a point now where enough of us are engaged to be able to really kick off a new direction, something sane. And so I decided to get a few people together and launch a campaign, starting off with crowdfunding money, because one of the mistakes I've made in the past, especially with the Human Shield Action to Iraq, but also something called Trade Not Aid or Aloha Palestine, where I was trying to initiate trade between the European Union and Palestine, Gaza. In both cases, I was taking on the powers that be very directly, but I had no budget to speak of, or very little budget to speak of. And ultimately, when you're trying to take on the most powerful interests in the world, with no budget at all, it's kind of difficult to say the least. You need a little bit of money to be able to do some basic things, and that was one thing that I realized that before I would even launch the World Citizen Mission, that we would need money. We asked for $79,000 and ended up getting around 110 or so. So this reveals how hungry people are. They really want to believe that there's something that can be done. And it also shows, to a certain extent, how much faith people have in me as well. I guess, they've looked at what I've spoken about, what I've done, and they believe that I'm sincere. And I certainly intend to honor that good faith in every way. So the plan itself involves a very basic principle, which is you'll hear a lot of people say, we need to unite. So the question then becomes, well, how? How do you unite people? When you look at the way the world functions, you'll realize, very obviously, that we have been polarized on virtually every issue. I mean, you name a subject, and boy, oh boy, there's going to be debate and argument and mudslinging. And, I mean, you can hardly name a subject that doesn't incite that type of response from us. This is very socially engineered so that we never really focus on the things that we agree on. We are constantly fixated on the things that we disagree on. We do this a lot in the independent, the human consciousness movement, whatever we call ourselves. We find a source of information and we see one thing that we really don't like and then we rubbish all the rest of it. An example of that would be someone like Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky's position on 9/11 is insulting and ridiculous, and nobody believes, he doesn't believe that shit. He's a very intelligent man. He couldn't possibly believe what he's saying. The question would be, why is he doing that? I don't know if he was intimidated, threatened, or if he's a willing pawn in the game of controlled opposition. I don't know why. But Noam Chomsky has also written a lot of really beautiful stuff, which was a big part of my awakening. So I would give him love and respect for that, but I would be wise enough and critically thinking enough to be able to call out bullshit when I see it. And obviously what he's saying about 9/11 and JFK is bullshit. But we don't need to throw out the baby with the bathwater. Let's take the good and throw out the bullshit. So this idea of uniting people is a little bit tricky because of this manipulation. And so when you really look to try and find a way to unite people, you better make sure that whatever it is you're trying to unite people under is very well universally respected and understood and agreed upon. So that's where the social contract of world citizenship comes up. For those of you who heard this last night, excuse me for the redundancy, but there's no way I couldn't discuss this. It really is the main thing that I have to say to everyone who comes to my talks, because to me, this is very, very possibly a big kickstart of solutions, a big, big potential plan that could literally change the world as we know it in 2016, if it is done the correct way. The core of this plan, World Citizen, is a social contract. A social contract is something that is used all the time to strip us of our rights. The social contract of citizenship, the birth certificate, the all capital letters fictitious corporate entity entity that is created, the legalese that's used, submitting applications for a license to travel when you have an inherent right to travel. All of these things are being used by the powers that be to justify the oppression of humanity and to strip you of your rights. So from their own point of view, there is a lot of value in social contracts. It is the basis of being able to deny you your rights because you have consented to a system which, by their own twisted, fraudulent nature and logic, you have consented to these rules. And you have, whether you know it or not, you have. Now, under this system, we're never, I've done this game. I've actually been harassed by the police because of my political activities in Hawaii and was constantly going into courts and constantly challenging the judges, what form of law are we practicing here, da-da-da-da. And, sometimes I had some success and other times they just, whatever, fined me and did whatever they did. I never paid any of the fines and whatnot. But what I realized pretty quickly is that this is their own little playground here. Even if you fucking know that system upside down and backwards, they've already had a victory there as far as I'm concerned, because if you have to wade into the codes and statutes, the Uniform Commercial Code, oh my God, it just in itself to get into that world is a victory. It's just madness. It's a code. Codes. It's a code. That's what it fucking is. You're not meant to fucking understand it. It's meant for them to understand, and you just be dumbfounded, like a deer caught in the headlights. So I realize, if you want to beat them, are you really going to play? Are you going to try and beat them in their playground? I mean, it's just stupid. Why are we fucking playing in their playground? Consenting to their bullshit. So that was the mentality behind the creation of a new social contract. One that trumps every other bullshit contract that they manipulated us into. And the key here is, if we participate in it. That is the key. The liberator of humanity is staring at you in the mirror when you stand in front of that mirror. That's the liberator right there. It's we. There is no one person who can do that. There is no savior coming on a white horse. We are going to have to do what we must do in order to affect a better world. The social contract is something that will derive its power from how many people decide to participate in it. Now, I'm going to do my best with it. I really am. I am not attached to the end result. Of course, I would love for this to be successful. It will feel so good to see this world move in the right direction and to be able to hand this over. But at the end of the day, I'm willing to accept the fact that this is not within my control. It is our decision, and I am confident to the extent that I do genuinely believe through my experiences with people around the world that we are basically good. I mean, even the most dogmatic and indoctrinated people, they'll come around too once we level the playing field. I'll be happy to embrace my Jewish supremacist brothers and sisters when they see the error of their ways and realize how destructive that mentality is, not only for others but for themselves. When my American supremacist brothers and sisters decide to see the world in a more sane and humane way, I will be happy to embrace them as well. And I'm sure a tremendous amount of healing is coming our way once we level the playing field. And that's what I want more than anything else. I do not want vengeance, although I definitely love and respect my brothers and sisters who are defending themselves with violence when necessary. I will never turn my back on those who are facing invading forces and armies and murderers and psychopaths and who kill these bastards that we send. So the peace that I seek is one based on justice, not peace at the end of a barrel of a gun. Because I'd rather die a free man than live in a state of enslavement or in an occupied land. So uniting people under a social contract, a new social contract. This social contract being completely different from the one that you were entered into at birth because you couldn't possibly consent to that contract, you were a fucking baby. So now, as thinking moral men and women, we can enter into a new social contract if we so choose to do so. And this social contract is very simple. And it's a social contract that will never ever be able to be altered. ever. It'll be etched in stone. These three elements of this social contract cannot and will not be changed. This is not something that you sign up into, which puts you into a club that gives you some sort of centralized power.